Hi guys, the last time that I talked to you, I showed you these rolls of 22 gauge stranded hookup wire that's available from Radio Days. And in the last random videos, I made a comment that this was 1,000 volts. Well, it depends on how you read the coding on the wire. Now it's got a bunch of different letterings and writings on the coating of this wire. And what it says, I'll try to find a spot where it starts because they basically butt right up to each other. It says style 1032, 90 degrees Celsius, 1000 volts, or style 1325, style 1325, 90 degrees Celsius, 600 volts. So, what is this stuff supposed to be used for? I noticed on their website they say it's only specified for up to 600 volts. And another YouTuber also made a comment about that. And I corrected him because all I'd seen was the 1,000 volts right here. So can you technically put 1,000 volts on this tiny little wire? I thought I'd toss that out to you. We're still going to use this for our transformer rebuild on the Stewart Warner, which we're fixing to get underway on today. It's a good day to stay inside today. It's chilly outside. The wind's blowing, the snow's blowing. It'd be a good day to be tucked in the basement working on a radio. Now if you do happen to venture outside, here's what you'll be dealing with today. Looks pretty nice, huh? Supposed to be back down about -14 again Monday into Tuesday this week. Like I said, a good day to stay inside and work on the radio. And if that first shot didn't convince you, look just to the left of that white house down there. It's been like that all weekend here. Anyway, let's get on with the radio repair. That's what we're here for, right? Now I showed you this transformer in many parts of this restoration so far, but now it's actually time to get down to brass tacks and get this thing worked on. We've done a lot of talking and have done very little progress on this thing, and we're already up to part 6. Now I won't show you the repair in its entirety. It's probably going to be kind of boring for some. And for me, I could use the concentration more on doing this than I could be picking the camera up every 3 to 5 minutes and showing you something new that really isn't new. But what I want to show you guys this morning is something I got offline here, and this comes from the Encyclopedia of Chicago, and it talks about the Stewart Warner Corporation that was in Chicago. And it reads, in 1905, John K. Stewart and Thomas J. Clark, the same men who in 1897 had created the Chicago Flexible Shaft Company, which became Sunbeam, founded Stewart and Clark, which manufactured speedometers for automobiles. Between 1906 and 1908, annual sales rose from about $35,000 to $350,000. Although Clark died in 1907 in a 1907 accident while demonstrating the product, the company continued to expand. By 1910, it had about 375 workers at its Chicago factory on Diversity Avenue. In 1912, after buying the Warner Instrument Company of Beloit, Wisconsin, another speedometer maker, the company became Stewart Warner Corporation. In 1924, Stewart Warner bought Basic Almite, I think that's how it's pronounced, a maker of high-pressure auto lubrication equipment formed out of companies based in Chicago, Connecticut, and Cleveland. By the end of the 1920s, annual sales had reached about $40 million. Although business lagged during the Great Depression, Stewart Warner employed about 2,500 people in the Chicago area, and in the mid-30s, when the company manufactured refrigerators and radios, as well as auto parts. So there you go. Our radio was made in the 1930s in Chicago, Illinois. And this goes on to say, during World War II, the company manufactured bombs and shells, fuses, and engine parts, becoming one of the nation's top 100 military contractors in terms of volume of sales to the U.S. government, which came to about $330 million over the course of the war. The company did not grow much during the post-war years, but by the early 70s, when the annual sales stood at about $260 million, it still employed about 5,000 people. Many of them at the plants on the city's west side in Chicago, at that time still 5,000 people. In 1987, most of Stewart Warner's operations were purchased by BTR, a British conglomerate. Over the next decade, the company's remaining divisions were either downsized area operations or were acquired by larger companies. By the late 1990s, Stewart Warner's Chicago presence had dwindled to a 20-employee stint at navigational equipment maker Stewart Warner's Electronic Corporation in Schiller Park. Schiller Park? I don't know how it's pronounced. But yeah, they went from a very prosperous company back in the early 1900s to being bought up and having at one time, close to 5,000 employees down to having 20 employees over the course of just about 70 years. Sad to see a company do that anymore. But that sheds more light on when our radio was built and where it was built. So there you go, John. This radio has a story too. Now, some of you might know what I'm up to already, but just this pile of plastic and these little screwdrivers laying here. And this is what we're going to do to patch our wires together with each other. We're going to use the coil method. Now, I found this method on another YouTube user's videos this past week. I found this very interesting. And basically all you're doing is taking a solid core piece of wire, in this case this is 22 gauge copper, and I strip the coating off the wire, take the wire and wrap it around a jeweler's screwdriver. Now for my needs, to allow two pieces of wire to go into one of these coils, I had to wrap this around the second smallest. This would be the smallest one in the screwdriver set. This is the next one up. So I went with the bigger one because it allows me to get a little bit more wire into that coil just like that, and I can bring the other one in from the other side. And then when everything's all said and done, I can heat shrink right over that and you'll never even know it's there. So I like this method already. This is kind of nice. Sure does take a while to strip down the wire though. Wowee. But you know what it is, guys, it's a hobby. It's supposed to be relaxing, they say. A lot of stripped wire later, here's our 10 coils that will attach our new wires to our old wires. I tell you what, your thumbs get to hurting after you've done that a while. And I suppose somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, you use copper instead of tin copper or whatever else you're supposed to use. Well, it's all I have on hand right now. I don't have any other wire except for something like this, which is like a 16 gauge. I think it says 16 gauge. I'd have to look here. 18 gauge, 600 volt General Electric wire. So I think that'll do just fine. I don't think that that'll cause any problems. If anybody gives me any flack, it's my radio. I'll do it how I want to do it. You do yours how you want to do yours. It's just my opinion. So we'll let the soldering iron warm up, which, by the way, there was some talk about using a 60-watt soldering iron for your repair work. And I picked this one up at a flea market early last year. And this is a welder 60 watt. This is a W60P, and it uses the kind of a flat tip. It's really good iron. Heats up really fast. It's got a nice kind of like a silicone cord on it that doesn't get all tangled up and everything. Kind of like that Radio Shack one back here. I've had that for 2 years, and that cord is never straightened out. It's real hard. That's only a 20 and a 40 water. I just use the base and use my little sponge out of that one. Just lay the iron off to the side because I can turn it off and on. And when I need it, it's back there. Let's get to work. Okay guys, it's our last wire, the center tap here on the secondary side. And what I did to these little coils was to stick a little bit of flux down inside of them. And slide them over the existing wire. And then our new center tap wire, which is this guy right here, we'll slide it right up inside of there. Get our solder ready. And this is just about like fluxing together two pieces of copper pipe. It works very well. Apply a little heat, you'll hear it sizzle like bacon. Just lay the solder to her, nice and easy. You don't want to overheat that lead going down into the transformer. Now we let it cool. And then what we'll do, we'll snip a piece of heat shrink tubing. I can go ahead and get the size that I need here. We'll go all the way back to the edge of the transformer winding with this. And it looks like that piece is just about the right length. We'll give the joint there just a few more minutes to cool. I'll pick this up and let you guys get a closer look at that. There's our little copper coil. Like I said, I just took a toothpick with some flux and put a little bit down the side of there. And then put the coil over the existing wire, then added our new wire, and then added solder, and it wicked it right in there. Pretty slick. So, let's go ahead and put our piece of tubing on here. This just fits right over them, just as slick as can be. You see our tubing's on there now. Now I like to use a stick lighter to melt my tubing. You just got to be careful you don't get too much heat on your wires, especially back here around this transformer. We don't want to set nothing on fire. Very careful. Very, very careful. There you have it. That makes a nice, tight connection. That's just about the same diameter as them wires. And when we can tuck them all back in there, when it comes time to put the clamshell back on, you'll never know any difference. Now this is the secondary side. Again, this is our high voltage center tap. This is our plate leads to the 80 rectifier. This is our 5 volt filament wires. Everything's coded correctly except for this. I went from yellow to red on the high voltage center tap. I thought that'd be a good idea. On our primary side, these are our power input wires. They stayed white like the originals. This is our center tap bias wire, which stayed yellow like the original. This goes out to the noise suppressor tube for bias. Then these two black wires here are our 2.5 volt filaments for the noise suppressor, and then every tube that's connected. And there you have it. It's all put back together for safekeeping right now. I put the clamshells back on it. Everything fits. You can feel everything moving, you know, nothing's bound. Plenty of room down in there for everything. But you got a lot of room inside this transformer clamshell, which is good. Some of them wires I might have to, like that one's kind of push over to the side just a little bit, but it shouldn't hurt nothing. So until it warms up, this is done, and all it's waiting on is painting, and then it can be wired back into the system. Now you might wonder why I put so much wire on the thing. Well, it's just to ensure that if anything would happen somewhere in that chassis, I don't have a wire just long enough after I went through all that, I'm really going to be upset. So that's why I left the wires long. So, check out the power transformer. So, now what? You guys tell me what you want to see me do next. You want to clean the chassis? You want to tear the tuner off and recondition it and clean it up? Or do we want to dive into the guts and start the recap? Incidentally, I have not found a substance yet to make these dog bones out of. I haven't made it over to Hobby Lobby. I've heard they got some stuff there that could be made out of, kind of like modeling clay. I suspect that's what it is. So, viewer's choice. What do y'all want to see next? For now, guys, this is the end of part 6. Thanks for watching, and there will be more to come later.